Just a moment, but first up, let's quickly get kick-started with this breaking update. Now, ahead of the Prime Minister's US visit, China, we are hearing, has blocked the proposal by India and the US at the United Nations to designate the elite terrorist Sajid Mir, wanted in the 26/11 attacks, as a global terrorist. Clearly not surprising, but this is a story just breaking right now as we are getting to you this entire coverage. China continues to back the elite terrorist Sajid Mir, who's wanted in the 26/11 attacks. And like I said, remember, the elephant in the room is really going to be China. Both the leaders, when they meet, Prime Minister Modi and Joe Biden, a lot is going to be discussed about China. China already, that is why it's fluttered. I quickly want to introduce our colleague Aishwarya, who's going to be joining us for the next many hours, as he's our man Friday, getting us all things that you need to know coming in from the Prime Minister's big visit. Also, good evening to Ambassador Deepak Voraji, who's a former diplomat, joining with us here in our studios. Dr. Tara Kartha is a former director of the National Security Council Secretariat. Mukesh is the president and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, and a lot of interesting insights, I'm told, that he's wanting to share with us. Kriti Upadhyay is a vice president of the 2CI Americas, joining us also. She's also the founding director of the IND US Tech Council, and our evergreen panelist, Major Gaurav Arya, with us, who really will put our focus on China and Pakistan. But before all that happens, a lot of interesting trivia that our guests will also share. Aishwarya, it's over to you. You already have a lot of guests. There's a lot of anticipation, no? The diaspora there really wanting
Deepthi
to catch another glimpse of the Prime Minister. Not the very first visit of the Prime Minister to the US, but his craze, his attraction, I think that connect is overwhelming.
No. Well, absolutely, Deepthi. But at this very point of time, you see, as you said, that the elephant in the room is China. You have people commenting as well. But as far as the reception of the Prime Minister is concerned, local time, it's going to take not more than 2 hours. That Prime Minister is going to land in New York. So within the next 120 minutes, Prime Minister is going to be here. I'm directly going to go to the people. Mr. Reddy, what's the expectation of a common Indo-American with the first state visit of Prime Minister Modi?
Yeah, we're very excited. First of all, the fact that India is under the guidance of Modi, governance of Modi, is the fastest growing economy in the world. And this is a win-win situation for America and India. First, we're talking about money and capitalism and technology. We're talking about security and military cooperation, and just the global growth in this partnership. And therefore, it makes perfect sense for President Biden to invite Prime Minister Modi, because we are talking about the new frontiers that these two countries can go forward with.
No, but you say that it's a win-win situation, but China is trying to play a spoil sport. China is just not happy about it.
Yeah, why should an enemy will be happy with when other countries...
The enemy is our neighbor, and we are trying to keep a working relationship with China as well.
Yeah, because that's always the geopolitics, right? We can't we can't separate from the neighbors, but the thing is that we have a good business with China, right? So we have more than $100 billion business with China, and we have to keep our factory running if we want a business with China. And it's vice versa too for the China too, right? Because they are getting the money. China may be unhappy because they are seeing now India and the US is growing, the partnership is growing at a different level. They are not like Pakistan have a master-slave relationship, right? India has a partner with the US. So that's the difference China is very well seeing. And as Dr. Reddy said, it's a win-win situation because India has the brain power and US has the technology power. So if both work together, and it will be win-win situation for both of them.
What do you think? That this combination which is being talked about, yes, Prime Minister Modi is being given a pedestal. Both the leaders, the Republican leader and the Democrat leader, has invited you. He's going to be the only Prime Minister of India to be addressing the US Congress for the second time. But when you talk about implementation of these bilaterals, you see that happening this time?
Oh yes, definitely. And even before the Modi ji coming here, it has been established that they will be talking about this security deal and drone deal and Mark II engine deals. And these are like already, these have been already established by the back channeling that these deals will happen. And a lot of benefit will actually come in terms of trade and support. And China being China's factories.
China being China. China is being China. Jagdishji, China is an over-aggressive, we are seeing a very over-aggressive China under the leadership of President Xi. Prime Minister Modi, in not these many words, but have very categorically said that India is happy being a net peace provider than a net security provider. So we are happy providing peace to the nation, to the world. But China is trying to play a spoilsport at very different way, because we also have a bilateral trade with China, and that's very important.
Of course.
And our bilateral trade with the US, Deepthi, stands at $190 billion at this very point of time. But China is somewhere or the other trying to threaten, as soon as it came to know that we are having those very specific defense deals, Jagdish.
Bilkul, China is really threatened. Why I threatened, I don't know. We have a good relationship with China. I mean, trade relationship with China. Too. China is our second big trading partner. So China is afraid because of this Quad, first of all, Australia, Japan, USA and India. And why it is happening? Because China is playing a bully. If China, like India, start behaving like a peace-loving country, this question will not arise. China is
hoping against hope, Jagdishji, for that.
No, I totally understand. I am hoping against hope. But China has to realize that India is one of the largest economy in the world. And China...
The world is realizing. I'll only say this much, Jagdish, that the world is realizing. But before I hand it over back to you, Deepthi, Reddy Saab, the way things are being termed, defense deals, business deal, Elon Musk is going to be here to meet the Prime Minister. These important bilaterals, apart from the government-to-government bilateral, these are also very important.
Yes, absolutely. They're all very important. And I think that's why this particular visit is really important, not just the state dinner, but also the speech by Prime Minister Modi to the Congress and the Senate. And so this is critically.
Prime Minister of India to be addressing the US Congress twice.
Absolutely, and that is, and I saw the letter, the invitation, and they actually mentioned the speech Prime Minister Modi gave the last time he addressed, and he talked about the futuristic approach and has lived up to the promise. And as we know, bottom line is money and technology and security. And if you look at the money and the futuristic approach, India being the fastest growing country on the planet today, why not? America is smart. It partners with the fast economic growth.
I think India and American partnership is very important for not only for India but for America as well. और उसी का reason है कि American government has invited Prime Minister Modi for the second state visit in 9 years. That's a very big honor for Indians, for Prime Minister Modi, for all Indians across the world, that we have been recognized not only by the US President.
Absolutely, sir. You were mentioning about technology exchange.
Yeah, see, this visit is only on the technology exchange, because now India has used the drones over there, and they have passed the...
But we've made sure, Ankush, that the AMC, the maintenance has to happen on the Indian shores.
Yeah.
So the technology exchange has to be complete. It can't be that you can give us the hardware, but for software we have to come back to New York.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they are saying that they are giving 80% of technology, right? In 80%, I expect that. I haven't seen the deal because I'm not a, right? But when I heard on the news channel 80% of technology exchange happens, it means the maximum technology is being done. And as per the Made in India initiative, which was taken by this administration, the Modi administration, I think that's a very subtle step they have taken towards the advancement of the exchange technology between India and...
Advancement. So, Deepthi, that's the sense you are getting here from New York, whether it's the defense deal, whether it's the corporate one-on-one, whether it's Elon Musk meeting the Prime Minister, that's also going to be a very important one. And as far as the defense deals are concerned, China being a bit nervous can be understood. Back to you in the studios, Deepthi.
Oh, absolutely. That's going to be the elephant in the room, Aishwarya. Only for the moment, I'm thanking you briefly, but I hope you'll be able to join us in some moment. And we'll use that opportunity in the meantime to quickly get in a comment each from our panel of guests who's been very patient. And thank you to all of you for that. Ambassador Deepak Voraji, if I could begin with you, sir. The Prime Minister earlier has put out an interview in the Wall Street Journal. Allow me to quote from what he said. When it comes to the permanent seat at the UNSC, he says India deserves a much higher, deeper and a wider profile and a role. Extremely important comment. The China conversation that we were just having, he's asserted that for normal ties with China, peace on the LAC is essential. On the ongoing war, where, a lot of people have criticized India for the stand that it has taken. The Prime Minister says, and I quote him again, India is not neutral. We are on the side of the people. What, according to you, sir, sums up this power today that India is? The US rolling out the red carpet quite literally for the Prime Minister. There are so many hopes, there are so many expectations. You believe the US today has realized that the hesitations of history are a thing of the past. You need to move ahead. It's a new chapter, transformational perhaps.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Always a pleasure to be on your amazing channel. You are one of our best anchors. I always listen to you very carefully. I learn from you, and I'm delighted to be sitting next to that outstanding son of India, Major Arya. I've just returned from the United States. I was in New York, spoke to a lot of people. Couple of things I'd like to say. Mr. Kapoor is there, your journalist, your representative. Manhattan, that's an American Indian word. It means a bow, like a bow and arrow. And by the way, the real estate in that little island, Manhattan, where I stay with my children, is $4 trillion, the value of the real estate. So when we were seeing a bird's eye view of the city from a chopper, from a helicopter, three things stood out, ma'am, about Manhattan. One, that tiny street called Wall Street. And Prime Minister's interview was to the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street, a very small street, is the financial nerve center of the universe. Everything goes through there. Second, ma'am, the center of international relations. There's a dinosaur there called the United Nations. You've probably heard about it. And the third thing is the throbbing heart of democracy, the Statue of Liberty. Give me your poor, your oppressed, your downtrodden. I hold my lamb beside the Golden Gate. That is America. That's what America is all about. That is what India is all about. Three things define our bilateral relationship. One is trade and investment. You might be interested, the millions of people watching your show. Total Indian investment in the United States, ma'am, is about $40 billion according to the latest reports. 200 Indian companies, 500,000 jobs in the US. And I'm not even talking of the jobs that will be created when we buy all those aircraft, the civil aircraft. American investment in India, $45 billion. There's not much of a difference. We are no longer supplicants. We are partners. That's the first thing, trade and investment. Second, ma'am, technology. Oh, you can curse the United States as much as you want. I've served there. I've lived there. Cutting edge technology, state-of-the-art technology. They have it. We need it. For them, India is a market. The dream of China has become a nightmare. And finally, the Indian diaspora. Wherever the Prime Minister goes at the highest level, beginning with the Vice President of the United States, he will be meeting with Indians occupying topmost position. So, ma'am, there is this new respect. When I was traveling back from the United States, I'd had dinner a couple of days before I left with one of my friends, a senator. I've known him for many, many years. I have a message, if you permit. I'd like to read it out. That'll tell you everything. It says, Ambassador Deepak, you were right. There is magic in Washington. It's Modi magic. What more can I say, ma'am?
Interesting, interesting. So, this is where you raise the expectations even more, Ambassador. And on that note, I also want to get in Tara. Dr. Tara, what are your expectations? People are like clubbing this entire visit, and I also decided to do that under three headers: the symbolism, the agenda, and the deliverables. What, according to you, possibly works this time? What do you believe this is a new era of the Indo-US partnership?
Actually, I don't think I've seen such a, results-laden visit ever before in any context. This is huge. I mean, in the sense that, look at the areas. You start even counting them, that becomes difficult. You look at the number of visits which have come, people who have come to India. It's not just officials, it's industry people. It is, the ISET has become a huge thing. The kind of level of enthusiasm on both sides, this is transformative. And we are very lucky to be seeing this phase. But also the fact, I think we need to remember that both governments have been after this for years. Look at the 2021 statements. This has all been worked on since then. You see, also interestingly, much of this, including the ISET, is also part of the Quad agenda. This is huge. So when we look at it in that respect, when we say transformative, I don't know what other word to use, but that is an understatement. If this thing swings through, and the main thing being both sides are putting aside the bureaucratic hurdles. So far, as the ambassador will remember, we've had so many of these in the past. This agenda, that agenda, none of it worked because the bureaucracy couldn't, there were so many hurdles along. That has been set aside. And that is what US officials are saying. We broke China to get the GE deal, for instance. So, yes, it is massive. I'm looking at some major deliverables.
Okay, I just want to pick up from that good point that you've made, Dr. Tara, and I think that that's true because a lot of people say this, that a lot of things can move between two countries, not just if you depend on bureaucrats, diplomats perhaps, but the chemistry between leaders. And on this point, I want to get in Mukesh here because he's also a very strong voice. He has a very strong opinion on how this relationship has traveled through time. And, Mukesh, allow me to quote from what the Prime Minister said when he was addressing the US Congress. This was in June of 2016, where he said that our relationship has overcome the hesitations of history. And he kind of indicated that it's time now to move towards the next leg. And Prime Minister Modi is his own man. There is only that much that perhaps diplomats can do or bureaucrats can do, but things change. No offenses meant to you, sir, but things really change. Once you get a leader as perhaps powerful, with such a strong conviction like Narendra Modi. Is that true, Mukesh?
Well, you have to understand that the three factors which are driving this partnership. One is geopolitics. For the first time, we are saying that US, India are aligned almost 99% geopolitically. Yes, we have our issues on Ukraine, but overall, there is a strong alignment. So that's what's driving one factor. The second factor is that you have the personal relationship, chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and President Biden. For President Biden to have him come for a quiet dinner on 21st evening with him and Jill Biden sends a message that I want to get to know more. For Jill Biden to host him as a teacher about skills development, that shows her personal effort that you come as a guest into my house and I want to make sure that you are comfortable. So that chemistry also plays a pivotal role as you look at the national alignment of national interest also. The third factor is the Indian diaspora. What we are seeing is that Biden administration has appointed almost 150 plus Indian Americans in its administration itself. And they are keen to drive this relationship much, much closer itself. And then I would say within that, you have what you call is the de-risking from China. US companies are saying, US boards are asking their CEOs, what are you doing to de-risk from China? So India plays that pivotal role. And finally, what I see is India's 1.4 billion people, as they're marking spending goes up and up, the per capita goes up, it provides tremendous market opportunity for US company to come in. So I think all the stars are aligned at the moment, and we see a momentum going forward. It's not about the drone deal. It's not about the GE deal. We're looking at some deeper effort, deeper partnership between the two countries, from artificial intelligence to quantum computing to cyber security itself. So I think for the first time, we are saying that some critical technologies are being transferred from US into India, and India providing some critical technology in the pharma side, in healthcare side to the US also.
Okay, and though it's time for me to head into a break, but what we'll do is we'll quickly let Major Gaurav Arya and also Kriti to put out their brief points so that we'll have something to think about as we'll head into a break. So Kriti, what according to you possibly is the big picture? I cannot not talk about the diaspora. The diaspora is a huge voting bloc, very, very influential. And you see that connect with the Prime Minister almost every time. It just gets bigger and better. Is that diaspora also equally important today for both Joe Biden and Donald Trump? Because I think they both are going to be squaring off against each other come the next year.
Of course, I think diaspora and people-to-people ties are the very foundation of our relationship. But if we talk about this visit and the upward trajectory of our relationship in the past few years, I think it's really the defense partnership that is taking us forward. And right now, all of us are in such a pivotal movement because what we're seeing right now is both sides, these two leaders, trying to reinvent and establish a new defense partnership. What does that defense partnership stand for? It is completely in contrast to the top-down, Russia-led, government-led defense model. This is about bringing in the startups, the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers, the investors, the private folks, and really democratizing innovation, democratizing supply chains. And this is what, really endears me, that what we're doing is so characteristic of democracies and these two great nations. And I know you have to head into a break, but I will say that this partnership also is one that is defined by win-win. It's not India that is asking for technology and investments. It's not the US that is asking for, friendshoring or offshoring. It is two partners, two friends coming together. You are saying, all right, if I have the technological edge, you have the geographical reach, you have the scale, you have the people. Let's come together and let's beat these common challenges together. And I think the reason, last point, that this time this partnership is going to be successful is because there are strategic interests for sure, but there are also commercial interests. The fact that, India can provide cost efficiency, supply chain resiliency, and brilliant STEM talent to the US, while US can provide investments and TOT to India. So we're all very excited and such a momentous moment.
Absolutely. And I'm just pushing that point that Kriti made, because there is a deal to manufacture jet engines in India that possibly could be inked, also to buy Predator drones from the US. Now, it's important also for viewers to know that the US has historically refused to transfer this critical technology to India. And jet engines, mind you, is one such technology today with the US, France, Russia, and UK. So in case that happens, the likelihood of that is pretty high. That's going to be a landmark deal that possibly could be signed. But Gaurav Arya, we have to also speak about Pakistan and about China. Now, you believe China, Major Gaurav Arya, is going to be that elephant in the room, the reason why you see China already looking disappointed and jittery?
Thank you very much, Deepthi, and Ambassador Vora, sir. Honor and privilege to be sitting next to you in the studio, sir. There are two things. You mentioned about the jet engine. Now, this is the holy grail of transfer of technology. I mean, this is really big. That is the heart of any fighter aircraft. And the US has pretty much decided that they'll share this with India. So it's really, really big. I haven't heard about this in the past. So for me, it's an absolutely new thing now. As far as Pakistan and China are concerned, Deepthi, you see, one point about China and one point about Pakistan. China is understandably upset because what this leads to also, right? What this leads to is decoupling between the United States and China. Now, it's still far away. For me to say that China is no longer the factory of the world, that will not be true. But the fact of the matter is that the Chinese economy isn't doing so well. Very recently, they saw a real estate collapse. And today, China is looking at competitors jumping up all over Asia, coming up. Suddenly, India is turbocharged. Suddenly, India is saying, give me Tesla, give me Apple, give me this and that. And Europe is going to follow suit. So I think this is something that is extremely painful for China. And you can see China reacting. You mentioned about Sajid Mir, the latest breaking news. And about Pakistan, I don't know how to slot Pakistan in this. I don't think Pakistan matters at all, apart from being the regular nuisance that it is. But not very much about Pakistan actually here, Deepthi. It's mostly about China and what China thinks. China has already said that this visit is going to be a failure and this relationship is going to be a failure. China has pretty much said it, and I can understand where China is coming from. There is a deep burn within the Chinese hearts because they see something actually taking shape in front of them. And this is what the Chinese dislike about India. I'll not use the term hate, but dislike about India, that you have somebody in the neighborhood, who's rising and who can give you a fight for your money or run for your money. And I think that is where the problem is with China.
Absolutely. But I'm sure there's so much more to, touch on when it comes to India, US, and obviously Pakistan and China, because that again are irritants that we'll see are being discussed during the conversation. With the permission of all our panel of guests, we'll quickly head into a break right now. But on the other side, We'll also put our focus on the entire preparations right now that have been put in place to welcome Prime Minister Modi, who's expected to touch down in New York close to about 10:30 Indian Standard Time. So don't go anywhere. This is our non-stop rolling coverage that continues.
Amity School of Communication has been ranked among India's top 5 mass comm institutes for the last 3 years by India Today, a testimony to its most high-tech studios, senior professionals as faculty and placements in leading media organizations. To apply, visit amity.edu.
Republic has always stood for the nation. It has always prided in putting India first. But in the digital news ecosystem, in the way that it has functioned with impunity for decades, there are some and many who have done everything to oppose the nation, to go against Indian interests, to parrot an anti-India fake news narrative across the world through digital. It is time that we change it once and for all. So this July, it's digital first, nation first, republic first.
Nation first means no considerations apart from putting India first. Nation first at Republic means chasing this story and telling it as the facts tell you it is before the nation. Nation first is confrontation to dig out the truth and put it before the nation. Nation first means questioning and demanding accountability so as to uphold democracy. What does nation first mean to you? Send us your thoughts on video via WhatsApp on 73044343881. Or upload it on your own social media handle with the hashtag NationFirst. We'll take some of your videos on air and the sharpest responses will get limited edition Republic merchandise from us with a surprise. Nation First means celebrating everything that defines us as Indians. Nation First at Republic is about taking pride in every victory of India and coming together in every moment of strife so we pull through as one. And Nation First is raising the pitch on the campaigns on behalf of the people. Nation First is exposing injustice no matter the cost. And what does Nation First mean to you? Send us your thoughts on video via WhatsApp on the number 73044343881. I'll repeat that, it's 73044343881, or you can even upload it on your social media handle with the hashtag NationFirst. And we'll take some of those videos on air on Republic TV, and the sharpest responses from you, the viewer, will get limited edition Republic merchandise from us with a surprise.
Nation First at Republic is simply about putting India first. It is about putting Indians first. It is about putting Indian interests first. It is also about putting Indian forces first. It is about putting the tricolor first. What does Nation First mean to you? Send us your thoughts on video via WhatsApp on 73044343881 or upload it on your social media handle with the hashtag Nation First. We'll take some of your videos on air and the sharpest responses will get limited edition Republic merchandise from us with a surprise.
Half-truths and half-baked facts have been the defining nature of the digital news media ecosystem in India. Agenda-driven cabals masquerading as journalists for decades who spend more time in crafted narrative building against the nation than contribute an iota of journalism. Foreign-funded outfits with interests that go against everything that India stands for. It's time for all of it to change, and it shall. This July, it's digital first, nation first, republic first. For too long, there's been a free run for those who want to create a narrative against India in the digital universe. Now, the guise of journalism over all these years has been used to carefully build a narrative that goes against Indian interests. The facts are whitewashed, lies are projected to stitch up this so-called digital news ecosystem that is apologetic about the pride in our glorious Indianness. And it's time to put that digital media in its place and unleash the force of nationalism in the digital news space. And this July, it's time for disruption once again. This July, it's digital first, nation first, republic first.
Republic has always stood for the nation. It has always prided in putting India first. But in the digital news ecosystem, in the way that it has functioned with impunity for decades, there are some and many who have done everything to oppose the nation, to go against Indian interests, to parrot an anti-India fake news narrative across the world through digital. It is time that we change it once and for all. So this July, it's digital first, nation first, republic first.
Nation first means no considerations apart from putting India first. Nation first at Republic means chasing the story and telling it as the facts tell you it is before the nation. Nation first is confrontation. Hello, welcome. You're watching the Trending Burning Question with me, Shavan Sen. Tonight, what we are going to focus on, my colleague Deepthi has already touched upon some major aspects of this entire visit, and many, as they say now. This partnership that we are talking about between India and the United States of America is now the partnership of equals. Before we get into further details of it, we're getting in some more breaking news right now. Just after his touchdown, Prime Minister Modi will start his power-packed schedule with meeting more than 20 thought leaders. Now, among the key meetings, Prime Minister Modi will meet the chairman of Tesla, Elon Musk, who's also the founder of SpaceX. The Modi-Musk meeting is significant one as India seeks Tesla factory here in India. And this after Apple's entry to the Indian market. We'll try and also go across to my colleague Sharmila Bhomik in a short while from now. Before that, let me just quickly introduce our guests. Joining us at the studio is Ambassador Deepak Vora, as well as Major Gaurav Arya. We also have Dr. Tara Karta, who's the former director of the National Security Council Secretariat. Mukesh Aghi, who's the president and CEO of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum. Kriti Upadhyay, who's the Vice President of C2CI America, founding director of the India-US Tech Council. And of course, we will try and go across to my colleague Sharbala right now. Sharbala, just a quick check of what we know so far in terms of the meetings that are going to take place. And all eyes certainly would also be on the fact that this is about not only the defense partnership, but more importantly, bringing business to India. So the big takeaways, if I may say so.
Yeah, Shawan, we are very excited at the business desk of Republic this evening because the Prime Minister Modi is expected to meet 20 top CEOs in the US, among them names like Sundar Pichai and Elon Musk. So we are expecting big decisions on Tesla's coming to India, about chip manufacturing facilities in India, about semiconductor manufacturing facilities in India, basically to reduce dependence on Chinese manufacturing and divert some of that towards India. So yes, it's a very exciting time for us as we await all these discussions which are pending in the US in a short while from now.
Well, thank you very much, Sharmila, for putting this into perspective. We'll also try and go across to our guests right now to get us more details. Purnima Voria, who's the founder and CEO of National US-India Chamber of Commerce. Ms. Voria, thank you very much for joining us on Republic TV. Let me straight away begin by asking you, in terms of expectations, more importantly, what we see right now is the focus in terms of bringing back business in India. We've already seen in the past President Biden has also spoken about that big aircraft deal that was essentially signed, which certainly brings in jobs in the US market. But what is it that we here in India can really expect from the partnership, which many are now saying is only growing with passing time?
I think this is a very good news for India. The highly anticipated visit of Prime Minister Modi is not going to focus on creating jobs in the US. I think his focus is going to be creating jobs in India, which is going to be through the defense partnership, manufacturing jobs, technologies, critical and emerging technologies. Mainly, I think this visit is going to focus on defense and aerospace and critical and emerging technologies, which is in turn going to create jobs in India. Modi ji, India and US. For India, what they are trying to do is create a $5 trillion economy for India, and which is going to happen because these deals are not small deals, and they are going to be helping a lot of people. For example, one of the days there are defense technology companies that are coming in this delegation from India also, and they are going to be cemented. And these are some of the very new companies, small companies, and they are going to be cemented in a one-day event of USIBC, where defense companies are going to talk to each other, where ISET is going to be launched. So there are a lot of things that are unknown at this point, but you have to look at it long term. There is going to be a lot of opportunities, especially for young Indians, to jump into the US markets, and the climate is perfect right now.
Let's take a look at a closer look in terms of few aspects that this partnership basically touches upon. And Major Gaurav Arya, if I can bring you in.
Hear you.
In terms of defense partnership, and let's not forget, let me just take it a little forward in terms of what really works between India and the United States of America. Now, as far as bilateral trade is concerned, Major Gaurav Arya, we've seen this crossing $190 billion in 2022, which essentially makes the US the largest trade partner. This has directly impacted at least China. If you have gone through what one of the top diplomats from China has to say, it shows the uneasiness at this point in time. Let's not forget there was a point in time that the United States of America created a Pakistan, created a China, only because of what we were calling that romantic neutrality that we were maintaining all this while.
Absolutely, Shravan. There are a few things here. You see, over a period of time, this entire discomfort in China also means, and China knows, that companies are moving out from China to India. And more than that, I mean, apart from mobile phones, if I were to ask you, China manufactures, let us say, the maximum number of cars in the world. Would you be able to name one single Chinese brand? Maybe you wouldn't be able to name.
Right.
Or one Chinese motorcycle, or one Chinese television, or one Chinese, maybe a microwave oven. You won't know these because China depends a lot on contract manufacturing. And IP theft also, but that is another matter altogether. Now, what is really happening is that the reason why China is objecting, and I said it when Deepthi was anchoring the program, I'll say it again, that there is a great deal of discomfort in China because this visit, we're talking about jet engines, we're talking about drones, we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about so many things, but we're also talking about, somehow, and I'm using these words very responsibly, somehow denting the supply chain of China. Because that is what China depends upon. And if this comes to India or moves out of China, it's good for India, it's good for the world, because an unreasonable China is in nobody's interest. And the only way you can actually hurt China, and I'm being blunt about it, the only way you can hurt China is to hurt them economically. And this is what China is seeing on the screen. Prime Minister Modi meeting President Joe Biden. This is nothing but hurting China.
Well, in fact, in terms of Major Gaurav Arya, I'm sure you'll agree that this dominance over the supply chain that India foresees at some point in time is something that perhaps China sees it in a trembling manner. Let me bring in Ambassador Vora right now. Ambassador Vora, Prime Minister Vajpayee had essentially indicated that the relationship between India and the United States of America is more like a natural ally. But the definition of a natural ally seems to have been a little bit ambiguous. What do we really mean when we say that we are a natural ally, because let's understand the positions that India has taken, not really supporting the United States of America when they've gone into a war with the Middle East. Thereafter, several other decisions that have taken. Are we once again looking at a similar situation, given the fact that the position that we have taken as far as Russia-Ukraine is concerned, that the West finds it very difficult to digest, no matter how much they might try to perhaps cover it up? But the fact of the matter is that that uneasiness still remains. Do you think that affects the definition of a natural ally?
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for permitting me to stay on and continue the discussion that we are having. Natural allies, we are probably natural partners. Partners is a better word than allies. We are the most non-aligned ally of the United States. So essentially, when you talked about Ukraine, or you talked about issues where we have our own autonomy, we don't talk of strategic autonomy. I talk of total autonomy, whether it's in our trade policies, our economic policies, our foreign policy. We want to decide what is best for us. No one else decides it for India. We're just too large, we're just too strong. Let me put it to you like this, sir. In the 1990s, you might recall, America, drunk with power, it had demolished the Soviet Union, and all they told us, they had a two-point agenda. I've served that, I was there. First, roll back your missile program. Second, eliminate your nuclear program. Then you had that ISRO spy scandal and all that rubbish. Subsequently, it did delay us, but India had its own rocket, India had its own nuclear bombs, etc. The one thing America has realized, you cannot coerce India. You do it, India will rise again and develop its technology itself. That recognition has come. From our side, sir, what are we looking for in this partnership? Sir, you can curse the United States as much as you want, anybody can. But as far as technology is concerned, artificial intelligence, China is natural stupidity. America is artificial intelligence. Whether it's medicine, whether it's space research, whether it's whatever, America has the technology and we need it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. Each time America has understood that. The China dream, sir, has become a nightmare. Now India stands here. Let me just conclude by saying there used to be a character, I don't know if you remember him, called Barack Obama. On one of his visits, they talked about a G2. You take half the world, I'll take half the world. And I believe that this tingling fellow who runs China said, all right, that's a great idea. You might take your part, but in my part, the East that you're talking about, I have a tiger called India. They won't let this happen. And that idea just died. So China is upset. If there is one country in the world, and I'm not saying this as an Indian, sir, I'm privileged to serve 3 prime ministers in Africa. Let me put it across as a South Sudanese. If there is one country in the world that can replace China, that has the human resource and the intelligence to do it in terms of supply chain, that is India. That's what makes us a natural attraction for the rest of the world. Those who think that they are not happy with China, and I don't think it has a single friend. It has a colony. What's it called, Major Arya? The Pakistan Autonomous Region of China or something like that, like the Tibet Autonomous Region and the Xinjiang Autonomous Region, etc. So what the world today understands, that we are betting on India. And so I conclude by saying, after this visit, or during this visit, before this visit, at least one of the leaders I'm privileged to serve in Africa called me and said, Ambassador, we are so happy that the Prime Minister at the G20 meetings has been raising the concerns of poor countries. Nobody ever raised that, but our voice is being heard. And he said to me, very bluntly, he said, do you know something, Ambassador? We have chosen India as our partner. And I responded, yahi hai right choice, baby.
That's an interesting point. And in fact, Ambassador Vora, I think so that's one aspect that not many are really focusing on. The very fact that the Prime Minister Modi is essentially now talking about including the African nations in G20, building that consensus. Dr. Tara, if I can bring you on this entire matter. What we are looking at right now, and the Prime Minister says that we are not neutral as a nation. We are on the side of peace, is what the Prime Minister says. 2 aspects. One, inclusion of the African nations and perhaps India playing a pivotal role in bringing them into that fold. And secondly, the position that India is making right now in the global order. What is it that you would like to put in right now, your perspective on these 2 issues? One, as far as broadening G20, the consensus on G20, and of course, let's not forget what the Prime Minister has to say with regards to global order.
No, I think it's we are at, like we said, at a very pivotal moment, right? This is an opportunity we have in our history which we cannot waste. Like as the ambassador said, it's a rising economy. We are getting there in terms of politically in so many ways. We are also on the side of peace. I mean, we are not for wars because it doesn't suit us. It doesn't suit half the world. That's a different issue. And it's not in our national interest. So I think by and large, the world has understood that we cannot just walk and say that Ukraine, on that issue, there's been an understanding that it is not in our interest. It's not in, to be very honest, it's not in anybody's interest to continue that war. In terms of Africa, bringing the African nations on to the G20 is, to let me use this word, it's a masterstroke. It's an absolute masterstroke. And I think you once had a non-aligned movement. Now it's much wider than that. You're a voice for all those countries who didn't have a stake in the international system. And now that's what you're trying to do. But, I just want to say one thing. What I find, and now that Kriti is here, I just want to say this. The critical part in this visit is that we have brought in private industry. And this is Jake Sullivan's vision of what the Indo-US, tie-up should be, is not just government to government. It is bringing in private industry. It is bringing in the smallest actors, some of them, by the way, who are providing critical technology to US defense industry. I mean, this aspect rarely comes out, but there are, units in India. There are startups in India who are providing that critical input to US defense industry already. This was way back in 21. So now the two governments are bringing all of that, tying up the strings, removing the knots, bringing this whole thing together. And it's a really massive exercise. I've never seen anything like it. And I've been at the NSCS, and I'm so proud that the NSCS is guiding this whole endeavor on ICT is being done by the NSCS, and there's no better place than to do this.
Well, almost all of you right now essentially are indicating what some experts are almost calling it the most defining partnership in the 21st century. But Kriti Upadhyay, if I can bring you in right now, are we reading too much into this? Because if you go by some of the political parties here in India, they specifically say that, so what? There have been other prime ministers who've gone to the United States of America. The relationship has, that has grown when Dr. Manmohan Singh was in power. Is that the right way of really looking at it right now? Or would you say that there is a paradigm shift, and the fact of the matter is that we ought to acknowledge that?
Well, there's definitely a paradigm shift. There is bipartisan support on both ends for this relationship. There has been, with the leadership that we've had in India for the past few years, there's been a sharper focus in engaging with the world and engaging with the rising powers of the world and engaging with them in a way that shows that, India has a seat at the table as an equal. But I will also say that the US-India relationship, there are champions who've been carrying this relationship for years, and I'll very quickly touch upon the engines and the TOT that has been happening. Let's not forget, this is not the first time that we're making attempts to enmesh our ecosystems together, right? We've tried with the High Corporation Technology Group, and there was some success with over there. A lot of items that were very in this highly restricted, controlled ITAR regulation were moved to the Commerce Control List, which meant that, you didn't need, in many items, you didn't even need a license. So some roadway happened. We did try with the Defense Technology and Trade Initiative to do co-production. Sure, we failed. But I think, the momentum kept going. Today, we've signed, in a very quick time in the past few years, we've signed all our foundational agreements. Fine, we're not allies, but we do work very closely on issues. Major defense partner is something that the United States has reserved just for India. On TOT, these GE engines are not the first GE engines, right? The GE engines 404 in the LC-8 Navy and the LC-8 Tejas that we have right now were also given by GE, made specifically for India. The IN-20 engines that GE made, the 404 IN-20 engines specifically for India, are the highest thrust engines that India currently has. So this relationship has been building, the building blocks have been laid. But today, where we are is really path-breaking and different in that strategically, commercially, both ends, we're coming together. We're coming together as equals, as partners, and we're coming together to fight common challenges. So I'd say it's different, but the building blocks have been there all along.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Upadhyay, for putting this into perspective, and also Ambassador Deepak Vora, Major Gaurav Arya joining us on this in the studio. I think so. This is just the beginning. We are hoping all of you would be coming back to us as we continue with our coverage, a rolling coverage. And as they say, some are calling this as the defining moment. The opposition parties here in India are certainly not very happy. They say there is nothing so very defining about it. We'll look into all such aspects. Dr. Tara, thank you very much for joining us, and Kriti Upadhyay and Ms. Purnima Voria for joining us on this edition of Trending Burning Question.
Nation first means no considerations apart from putting India first. Nation first at Republic means chasing this story and telling it as the facts tell you it is before the nation. Nation first is confrontation to dig out the truth and put it before the nation. Nation first means questioning and demanding accountability so as to uphold democracy. What does nation first mean to you? Send us your thoughts on video via WhatsApp on 73044343881. Or upload it on your own social media handle with the hashtag #NationFirst. We'll take some of your videos on air, and the sharpest responses will get limited edition Republic merchandise from us with a surprise. Nation first means celebrating everything that defines us as Indians. Nation first at Republic is about taking pride in every victory of India and coming together in every moment of strife so we pull through as one. And Nation first is raising the pitch on the campaigns on behalf of the people. Nation first is exposing injustice no matter the cost. And what does Nation first mean to you? Send us your thoughts on video via WhatsApp on the number 73044343881. I'll repeat that, it's 73044343881, or you can even upload it on your social media handle with the hashtag #NationFirst. And we'll take some of those videos on air on Republic TV, and the sharpest responses from you, the viewer, will get limited edition Republic merchandise from us with a surprise.
Nation First at Republic is simply about putting India